let's get into last night's game. I think that's a great place to start. A victory over Fulham. I want to get the negatives out of the way, guys. Let's start with the negatives and address that, and then we can move on to some of the more positive things we've seen. But I'll start with you, Clive. I couldn't help but come away from the Emirates, despite watching Arsenal win, watching Bukayo Saka return, and with a goal. I couldn't help but leave feeling disappointed at the news that Gabriel looks like he's picked up a hamstring injury.
Yeah, when you walked in the stadium, you're wondering about Saka's hamstring, and then you walk out the stadium wondering about Gabriel's hamstring, and it's like you're looking at your best attacker and your best defender, right? So you get one back, you lose the other, and it's like it's also almost epitomises the whole season, doesn't it? You sort of take a little step forward and you take a step back, and the outside world we're making excuses, but it has been a challenging year in that regard. We can't get a smooth way forward, but yeah, he's been brilliant this season, hasn't he? And he always plays. And then the moment we're all sort of imagining, could we do something in Madrid? But in our hearts, we know we need him to do something in Madrid. So it's a real blow,
For sure, Perry. It was obviously a huge disappointment, and I know you've got some thoughts on hamstring injuries in general because we're seeing a fair few of them at the minute.
Yeah, someone who's got short hamstrings and Jimmy Cranky. I feel their pain. There's one for the teenagers. When I was just doing a little bit of research, because sometimes I do, there's been 47 hamstring injuries across the Premier League this season. So it's the biggest muscle injury and the biggest injury by far. And obviously we've got Kai Havertz, who's had a bad hamstring injury when they was away in Dubai. Bukayo's had a operation. It looks like, unfortunately, Gabriel's going to be out, which is we're getting to the Real Madrid stuff, but that is massive. I've got a theory about, and I've said it for about 5 or 6 years, about the pitches. I think because the pitches now, they are sand and gravel based, so they're unbelievably firm. If you go back to my era, when obviously Highbury was like magnificent, it was the oldest grass and mud, basically. So you had a lot more give in those pitches. And they train on the same pitches, quite rightly, as what they play on. So there's 4 of those pitches at London Coney, got an indoor pitch there. So I think that because there's not as much give in those pitches and then you're pounding on a harder surface, I think that's going to affect your hamstrings. And that's exactly what happened. If you look at like Gabriel last night, I'd love to think that he might have just felt a little sort of tightness in there, you know what I mean? And he's going to be all right for next Tuesday. He's not. You can just tell that worse ways out, that looked like it was a 3 or 4 week sort of a hamstring injury. And our percentage of being able to beat Real Madrid now, I gave it a 50-50 with Gabriel and Saliba as centre halves. Now I think he is that important, and Saliba, he's one of the players that we can't afford to lose because the drop-off in the replacement, and it's no disrespect to whoever plays there, is so big. I think now we go down to a 25-30% chance of beating Real Madrid. But I think it's the firmness of these pitches.
It could well be. It's a really good point, and I hadn't thought of it, if I'm being completely honest. But it makes a lot of sense. Clive, obviously this injury is bad news regardless because Gabriel is such a top defender. But given the fact that Ben White's had a little bit of a niggle, which obviously saw him ruled out of last night's game, Calafiori's going to be out for a number of weeks as well. And Timber went off in the game as well. We're not quite sure how severe or what the deal is exactly with him. But it does feel like, again, for Arsenal, it's the worst possible timing. You get all your attackers back, or you start to, and then you start losing players at the other end of the pitch.
Yeah, I mean, just lose 4 defenders in just over a week or so. Right, so all of us are thinking when Gabriel gets the yellow card playing for Brazil, misses the Argentina game, we're thinking happy days. He can get the one bit of rest that he never gets playing for us. He always plays where Saliba gets the odd night off. And I'm thinking, great, comes back. I think we'll have our little theories, don't we, about this? Comes back, and I'm now thinking, well, maybe he should have played for Brazil. He would have been in condition, and he wouldn't have gone. And I thought, well, maybe why did it go? And look at Traore running through us early in that game yesterday. He's having to do a few recovery sprints early, and suddenly it happens. And the science around it, and Perry's got a great theory there, but the science around hamstrings is very difficult to be precise about it because you never know when it's going to go. I mean, I wasn't a sprinter. Perry was a sprinter, right? And you can never tell it's going to go. It's always a shock when it goes, like being hit by a bullet, right? So it's very difficult time, but we've really suffered this year. Not with the 3 weekers that we're all hoping for. I mean, look at Kai Havertz. We've had 2 operations, the serious ones. That means somebody somewhere is going to be looking at what's happening to these players, and so there is a serious bit of analysis to be done. But my overall feeling, I don't want to go down this road, but my overall feeling always is, I wonder if we're asking too much of the top level players that play international football and have international tournaments. I wonder if we're asking a little bit too much of those players. That's my theory.
No, Clive.
I know,
no,
Perry, I had to
no.
say it, mate. I had to say it just for you.
No. Trust me, they're chasing a pig's bladder for their round maybe twice a week, and obviously there's pressure in the games. But go back to the era of the 70s and 80s, players were playing 60, 70 games on worse pitches with not as much protection from referees. So, and you said there the sports science behind it is unreal. They have their monitors on now where if they're in the red zone, they don't train. So, we disagree on that one, Clive, because I'd say
we do.
I think when you're winning, you don't feel as tired, you don't have as many niggling injuries. And we've actually, to be fair to us, even with all these injuries, we've only lost one in the last 21 in the Premier League. Do you know what I mean? So we've managed to cope. But now we're going up a level against Real Madrid. That's huge.
Now the point
All
about
the focus is obviously on. Go on, sorry.
Sorry, mate. The point of what we've done, regardless, is incredible. And I know sometimes it doesn't look smooth. It looks a bit lumpy on occasions. But our ability to stay in shape and get into shape quickly defensively is excellent. Then we do go to attack. We know what we're doing, and so we have a level of play now. We have a floor in this team that's really, really high. What we are lacking is that high ceiling, maybe, of attacking play that really makes us dream. But yeah, what we're doing, despite this, I think it's outstanding and it's been overlooked.
Yeah, for sure. And we've mentioned Gabriel there in quite depth and detail, but obviously Jurriën Timber's another concern, and in particular with the injury to White and the problems with Calafiori as well that seem to be ongoing, if we're being honest, when discussing the Italian. It is a concern.